that have never been done before.
We the people tell the government what to do. It doesn't tell us. We the people are the driver. The government is the car. And we decide where it should go and by what route to do. We the people are free. And I hope we have once again reminded people that man is not free unless government is limited.
Hello, you wonderful people, you. I'm sorry, a bit late notification tonight. I didn't manage to get the show put together until a bit after 6 o'clock, so my time that is. So my apologies if you didn't get the notification. It's probably more my fault than you turds at this stage. But, you know, we can blame them for so many other things. How's your day been? Been all right? If you've been anything like many, many other people, you've spent your time in a queue buying a bit of silver. And if you have already been in that queue, maybe yesterday, day before, weeks ago, you've probably been looking with a little bit of interest at what's happening with the price of silver in your part of the world. Well, in most parts of the world. So let's get into it and start off with that, shall we? Got to say, you need to be reasonably happy at this current juncture. Ainslie Bullion have the spot price in Australian dollars at the moment of $128.11. Now, this morning when trade started, I want to say that it was somewhere around, when I woke up, it was somewhere around 125, but I believe that it had been up to 126, and then it dropped back. Earlier today, I saw it at 122. Right now, it's 128. That's a fair bit of price fluctuation in a very, very short space of time. And the volatility in the market is staggering, absolutely staggering. Now, people have been concerned about getting supply of silver. I'm talking about stackers. I'm not talking about the industrials and those sorts of people, the professional use, if you like, folks. They're the ones who are striving to buy 1,000-kilo bars, whereas you might be looking to buy a few coins or a couple of kilos or maybe a few kilos if you're lucky enough to be able to do that. Many people have taken that option this week and in previous weeks, but in the last few days, in the last few weeks, really, we have seen some amazing figures. So let's just rehash for one moment. This is the figure off the Ainslie chart that shows the price of silver on the 1st of January 2025. It was $46 an ounce on the 1st of January 2025. On the 2nd of January 2026, it was $110. Okay, 2nd of January, that's when trading started again. It did get a bump over the Christmas New Year period. I want to say when trading stopped over the Christmas New Year period, from memory, it was around $108 an ounce. It got a big bump on this day, January 2. Then, of course, today, I took this earlier at 126, but now, as you can see there before, we are looking at a spot rate for an ounce of silver of $128, a little over $128 per ounce. Gold, on the other hand, has also gone up, come down a little bit, gone up a bit, but there are new highs for both of them. At the moment, gold is trading at 4,593 and on the way up. The Americans are, particularly the stackers over there, are very interested in the price of gold. Silver at the moment is just about to break through $86. That upward pressure is maintaining. So, I'm sure you are very aware that I am no financial guru, and anything that I've been telling you about what to do with your silver is only something I've been told from somebody else or something else I've watched or many something else's I've watched. And I am reasonably confident that many of you will have watched similar sort of stuff. Now, before I get into discussing that, let's talk about mainstream media for a minute. The first stories I've seen about a lift in gold and silver prices appeared in mainstream media today at news.com.au. Silver has overtaken Nvidia as the second most valuable asset by market capitalization. Instability fears around the US Federal Reserve have sent precious metals to record highs. First bit of bullshit in the first paragraph, right? But they're at least talking about what's going on. This is in relation to the Fed, because the Fed came out with gold and silver hit record highs after shock Fed Reserve criminal probe. Now, if you're unaware, Trump has instigated a probe into the head of the Fed, a guy called Jerome Powell. Powell is saying that's because he won't do what Trump wants him to do, and that is to bow to whatever financial and monetary policies Trump wants to put in place for America. Instead, he wants to do what's best for everybody in America, and haven't the Fed always done what's best for all Americans since they helped sink the Titanic and create the Fed and rig the voting system and rig the tax system, in fact, introduce the... Anyway, we could go on. Anyway, mainstream media have finally woken up to the fact and lied to you in the very first paragraph. The second paragraph, the price of silver and gold are both hit record highs. That's true. On Monday US time. They have hit them Tuesday US time too, and they will probably keep hitting them this week, as investors piled into the safe haven metals following the shock revelation that US prosecutors have opened an investigation into the Federal Reserve chair. That investigation is not going to go anywhere that certainly Jerome Powell is telling you it's going to go. The move sparked renewed concerns about the independence of the central bank to set interest rates and rein in inflation, making gold and silver more attractive as a store of value as the US dollar fell against the currencies. Okay, spot gold rose 2.6% to an all-time high of 4,625 per ounce. I think that's been beaten by now and it's dropped back a bit. There are more. So few little bits to, keep the fluff going around and make it sound like this is a very exciting thing that's all dependent on the Fed. We see increased interference with the Fed as a key bullish wildcard for the precious metals in 2025. Okay, so it's the fact that the US government is interfering with the Feds that gold and silver are going up. Don't think that that's quite the case. There was I knew there was a reason I put this up here. It must be in the next one. Oh, here it is. Global uncertainty saw gold surge more than 64% last year, its best performance since 79, while silver had its strongest ever year with a 146.8% increase. Now, they are saying that the price of silver is going to keep going up because Donald Trump has threatened to take over Greenland. He's already gone and abducted Maduro. He's made threats against Colombia and has taken a very nasty side eye to Cuba, saying all sorts of weird, wonderful things. So the first time that the media want to talk about this rise in metals is because Donald Trump is doing something to the Fed. There are people out there who are actually believing that today, folks. There are people out there who wouldn't have the vaguest idea what's going on. And there are many people out there who only have an idea of what's going on because this bloke pops up every morning in your feed and tells you. Now, you might know this bloke from various different feeds, various different channels, various different names. He goes by the name, in one channel at least, as John A.G. I take that as a little tongue-in-cheek, John Silver. He goes as somebody Huang on another channel. Boring Currency is one of the channels that he has. At any rate, I've been, as many of you have been, listening to the Asian guy for a few weeks. And I'll have to be honest, his information has been very logical, very factual so far, if the results that we are seeing are based on what he was saying. And we're seeing those results. However, this is the guy that I referred to you as being AI generated when I first started referring to this sort of stuff. And I said, there is an AI out there that's got very good information. And I'm still trying to figure out the ins and outs of it. Now, since then, I've discovered this guy pop up on at least half a dozen different channels. 3 times a day, this AI punches out 3 different stories highlighting what the market is doing. Now, it broaches the same subject 3 different ways and throws that out into the market. And obviously everybody is feverishly watching everything. So whoever is putting this AI together is making a lot of money out of it. Now, this comes down also to the quality of the information that we are getting. The predictions that John AG or John Silver or whatever you want to call him, the Asian guy, has been putting out have been pretty focused, pretty right, pretty correct. He's been able to predict the jumps in the market and I dare say some of the slumps, the pullbacks, if you like, that are bound to happen when you've got a market that's doing what it's doing here right now. But how far do you trust this man or this AI? And have you ever wondered about the information? Have you ever dug further into the information that is delivered in some of those reports? Now, in the last few days, I've just been taking down a few figures we all know me and maths, so take these figures for what you will. But I've been taking down some figures, and he's been quoting some pretty big numbers and reasons why the price of silver is going the way it's going, why it's not going to stop going the way it's going anytime soon. Now, that has been the message that I've been receiving from him off various different channels, and you've been receiving it too, for the last 2 or 3 weeks, maybe even a bit longer than that. And it's been force-fed into my feeds. It's coming every time I turn on a YouTube channel or a Rumble channel. I'm seeing the Asian guy. So they're very definitely targeting it. It's certainly getting a lot of exposure, and a lot of people like you and I, retail customers, are listening to it and taking the opportunity to line up and buy silver and have it in our hand, in our pocket, in our vault, so that should the world collapse, we've got something we can go dealing with. Certainly there's something sick going on with the financial markets. But in the last few days, he's been talking about HSBC, was the first one that caught my attention. Now, the Asian guy, when he was talking about HSBC, was talking about the London Bullion Market Association. That is where gold and silver is bought and sold has been for I don't know how many years, since London's been in operation. It's been the hub, if you like, of silver sales for that entire time. Now, the London Bullion Bank, if you like, whatever we're going to call it, association, has to have 5 banks as core members. Otherwise, it cannot form a stable and coherent market. Now, John AG, the Asian guy, came out with a report a few days ago that HSBC had held an extraordinary board meeting, and along with Bank of America, who had also held an extraordinary board meeting, had decided that they needed to get out of silver permanently, and they needed to do it quickly. In the case of Bank of America, they've got to be out by January 31st, and they have, according to this guy, John A.G., have a prediction of the price of silver by the time they've finished buying what they need to buy to cover the shorts, or cover the shorts as best they can. There will be cash payouts. That is the same for every one of these institutions I'm about to mention. Now, Bank of America says that its predictions say that the cost of silver will go to $307 an ounce by the time it's finished its buying spree, which it has to have finished by January 31. Don't get excited. HSBC, now I didn't write down stupidly at the time, I didn't write down the Bank of America numbers, but it's in the billions of ounces that they need to find, as are all the figures I'm about to read you. So the Asian guy came out with something about HSBC. His figures indicate that they are 7.3 billion ounces short. People are calling for the actual product. These clients of HSBC have said, right, we don't want the money, we want the actual product now. And HSBC has done an audit of its stocks and discovered that where it thought it had some hundreds of millions of ounces in its vaults, it discovered that it had 43 million ounces in its vault, which sounds like a lot, but when you got to find 7.3 billion ounces, 43 billion really isn't a drop in the ocean. So what did they do? According to John A.G., the Asian guy, they held an extraordinary board meeting and decided that they'll get out of silver completely. They have to, or it will, well, have some dire ramifications by January 31. What are those dire ramifications? Well, the dire ramifications are that there will be fraud or theft involved, because you happen to be an HSBC client who bought silver through one of their traders, and you want to hold that silver. You want to go to the bank and collect it. They can't deliver it. That's fraud. Now, because they've said that they've had it in the bank, they've kept it for you, it's been allocated, but the bank has done something else with its silver. It has leased it out or sold it or done whatever, but it ain't where it is meant to be, and the people who want it aren't going to get it. So the bank is going to need to make some sort of financial deal to pay these people cash. Now, the finance companies, the banks, will want to pay the Western price for silver, which is currently $130 odd, 128, $130 odd an ounce. That is much more than they shorted it for. It's going to cost them a fortune. Getting back to the London bullion market, HSBC is one of the 5 banks that it requires to maintain a market. It has advised the London bullion market that it will be getting out of silver by January 31st completely. And it has also advised that they expect by the time they've finished buying as much silver as they can, the price will be somewhere between, best case scenario, $347 an ounce, and worst case scenario, $547 an ounce. That's US dollars we're talking about. That's HSBC. Morgan Stanley, 5.9 billion ounces short. Morgan Stanley are also part of the big 5 required to be working if the London Bullion Market Association is to be able to sustain a fair market. Morgan Stanley called a meeting, according to the Asian guy, where they discovered a lot of these meetings happened on January the 12th, some on January the 11th, according to the Asian guy. Morgan Stanley have done a forward cast of what they expect the price of silver per ounce will be by the time they finish buying as much silver as they can through the market. They need to exit the market by February 15. They have a couple more weeks to try and find 5.9 billion ounces of silver. And they project the price to be at $289 US by the time they've finished buying come 15th of February. Citibank, another of the 5 banks that are required by the London bullion market to maintain a market, have discovered, apparently, according to the silver guy, 6.3 billion ounces will be required to pay out their shorts, and they have until February 1st to pay those out or get liquidated. That is the choice for all of these. You don't pay these out, your business gets liquidated by a machine at 1 second past the due time. And that's the end of your business. That's the end of everything. Everything gets liquidated. Citibank have done their forward projections of what the cost of silver will be by the time they finish buying it on February the 1st. They have to be out. And why are there dates where they have to be out? I'll tell you about that in a minute. But Citibank have to be out by February the 1st, and they project that the price of silver will be $267 US an ounce by the time they've finished their buy and exit February 1. Finally, there is a bank well, a group, part of a bank called Scotiabank, which is one of Canada's largest. A derivative of Scotiabank is a bullion company called Scotia Mercada. And Scotia Mercada are also one of the big five banks that put together the London Bullion Market Association's silver market for the world. They, according to the Asian guy, have had a huge meeting. They've gone in and discovered that they are well short of the amount of ounces that they will have to give out to their clients. How many short? Well, they have 4.3 billion ounces to find. And if you listen to the Asian guy, the market, the management of Scotiabank and Scotia Mercada have not only decided to get out of silver, but Scotia Mercada have got out of silver with immediate effect. They've advised, apparently, the London Bullion Market Association. They expect to exit the market completely, their silver position completely, and close the silver desk permanently by February the 7th. So I've been sitting there looking at those numbers for a few days. I'm thinking, there's some big numbers there. So I've added them up. And you know me and numbers. These are potentially a little fluffy around the edges, and I have no doubt you'll pull me up if I'm wrong. But of the billions of ounces that I've quoted you, it all adds up to 23,800,000,000 ounces, troy ounces of silver. That is what they owe people. Now, I haven't asked any AI to try and find out exactly the estimated amount of silver on the face of the planet, but I'm not completely sure. There might be more than that. There probably is more than that, but at least 23,800,000,000 ounces from those five banks that I mentioned, not including Bank of America, needs to be found. Some by January 31st, but by the latest, February 15. What's that in kilos? Well, it's 7,437,500 kilograms. And what does all that add up to? Well, if you use the current spot rate, which I did just before the show started, which was 4,095, I think, about a kilo, it works out at $30,461,620,000. Now, I know these numbers are just huge and probably don't mean too much to the likes of you, me, and the Gatepost. But the banks I've mentioned there, I'm sorry, the five that are associated with the London bullion market are HSBC, JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs, UBS, and Scotia Mercada. They must have five to run a market. HSBC and Scotia Mercada have already advised, according to the Asian guy, that they are leaving the market. So where does that leave JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs, and UBS? Well, all of them are reporting big silver deficits. There are huge calls being put on them, and their clients want to be paid in silver because they can see where the hard physical product is versus where the paper product that these people are playing with is. So at the moment, JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs, and UBS are the only three operators still in the London Bullion Market Association, if you listen to the Asian guy. We'll keep going because there's a bit more. Based on everything that we've seen there and what his analysis is to this point, we should be hopeful of having a silver price somewhere before the end of February, let's be generous, and say it'll be somewhere between $273 and 347, worst case scenario for the businesses at least, $547 an ounce by the end of February. Very hopeful. We were all terribly excited. Like, if you've been listening to that information over the last few weeks, you will have been excited. You will have been to your local bullion dealer. Hopefully, you've gone online to ainslieBullion.com.au and got a discount by using the Voice of Freedom in the notes section and bought some. I really hope that you've got in. And this is exciting news. And what have we seen the market do after we've seen 1, 2, or 10 reports from this guy in a day? We've seen the market do basically what he says it's going to do. I've tried finding some of the information out that, the AI says it has access to these emails. I have copies. Well, it's very easy for an AI to tell you it has copies of anything without actually having to prove that it has copies of anything. And I'm always a bit skeptical when they say, these sort of things have happened. Big announcements like that happen. Well, the market reacts to them badly. The world knows about it, and it would, if not being in the financial pages at least, there will be some record of it on the internet. There's none of it. I can find no relevant information at all on any of the things I've told you about, HSBC or Scotia Mercado or anybody like that. And as far as I'm aware, the London Bullion Market Association is trading right now, which might explain why the price is where it is right now. So it is with great glee every morning I bound out of bed and rush to my Ainslie Bullion webpage to see what the price is. And then the very next thing I do is probably go looking for an Asian guy video to see what he has to say over the whole thing. And this morning, I got a shock. I got quite worried. I thought, I felt anxiety over something that he said. And then I started thinking more about it and doing a little bit more investigation. But what did he say to set me off? Well, he set me off by suggesting that Samsung have held a board meeting and have come out and announced that they have quietly been buying silver for the last 5 years and storing it in a vault somewhere in Korea, one suspects, saving it for just this kind of a rainy day. And that they will be selling their 350 million ounces of silver to the market immediately. Why would Samsung, who need this silver for industrial purposes, they haven't bought it for investment, they've bought this silver for industrial purposes because they are huge electronics manufacturers in so many different areas, from bloody washing machines to boats to your phone. But there are so many electrical things that silver is a commodity they use, they consume. It is part of their business model. So why all of a sudden would Samsung come out and say, we don't need 350 million ounces of silver anymore? Because we have a new technology that we are introducing to the world. It is a graphene-based technology, and we will have no need for any silver going further. And they have been testing it. I've been able to find some information on the products that, I beg your pardon, on the testing of graphene and finding or exploring its uses in the Samsung business model. But AG Guy tells us that they're going to sell 350 million ounces of silver, and that if they were to dump that on the market in one day, as suggested, it would crash the price of silver back down to maybe $60. Well, that sort of concerned me a bit. So I thought I'd like to go out and find a bit more information about this graphene technology. It certainly would be marvelous if we can get away from certainly the battery style technology as well. If they've got a way of getting graphene to work instead of a battery, I'd be amazed, but who knows? Battery technology is where a lot of the silver goes, and a lot of Samsung products have batteries. So I think we're a long way away from seeing no silver in Samsung products. However, are we actually seeing anything to do with graphene? Well, my research today indicates that there is absolutely no reason to believe Samsung have had a meeting about anything other than how to make more money out of the new products they are releasing in this year. They have conducted research on graphene over many years to figure out ways that they might be able to commercialize it. But they've had certain breakthroughs in electronic areas, but they have not had anything that would allow silver to be completely taken off the cards and not used in technology at all. So I wonder. And that then made me go looking at things like HSBC. So I started looking at HSBC and seeing whether or not they'd made any announcement. Now, it's highly possible that these announcements haven't been made public yet, and therefore, no matter how deeply I look on the interwebs, I'm not going to be able to find them because I'm not AI and don't have the benefit of every computer on earth to do my bidding. But they're possible, I guess, that these things are happening. But I don't believe for one moment that the London Bullion Market Association is closing down today. I don't think it's going to close down this week. There is a lot of pressure on markets around the world, and there are going to be a lot of businesses that go to the wall. A lot of these big hedge funds, there'll be a lot of people in the US who have their 401k, read their retirement income, invested in some of these institutions that will go down in this fall. It's going to make a lot of Americans terribly unhappy. And I'm not sure whether or not Freedom Financial Solutions offer a self-managed super fund option to Americans, but if you're an American, I'd be inquiring if I were you. Get your 401k out of anything the government can have anything to do with, and probably try and put it into some silver or gold at the moment. Pardon me. Oh, look, there's the cough. Let's not start that off again like last night, shall we? That's a bit of a pain in the bum. So, yeah, my thoughts are, at this point in time at least, that we need to be pretty careful about what we're doing, what we're hearing, and who we're hearing it from. While I cannot fault, and I am no financial advisor or analyst, but I'm a logical thinker. I listen to what that AI has said. I've seen what the market is doing, and I felt very comfortable making decisions to go and buy or not buy based on what he said. Now, I'm not going in with tens of thousands of dollars and buying anything. I'm talking about buying coins here, but for other people, it is a very, very big decision. For other people, it may be hundreds of thousands of dollars, or even if it isn't, it's still whatever amount of money. It's still a lot of money to you. I'm sure it is. So I'm trying very hard to keep an open mind about the whole thing and keep a very close eye on the market. My problem is I probably don't know enough and haven't been watching markets long enough to be able to pick a trend that says, oh, it's going to blow up anytime soon. So for that reason, I am basing all my decisions off the gold and silver ratio. The gold and silver ratio at the moment is, I must have shut it down, did I? I'm a bit of a tool. Let me just bring it up again. 53.6. It was at 53.0 earlier. I have seen it down at 52. We've been talking. Remember, when it gets to 32, all right, this is the easiest way, if you happen to hold a kilo of silver, at 32, at a gold silver ratio of 32, you can take your 1 kilo of silver and swap it for an ounce of gold. Now, you may or may not want to do that. Gold prices might be a bit more stable in the longer term, and you might want to secure some of your wealth in gold, not necessarily all of it. But I would put a little bit of it in there and keep playing silver for as long as humanly possible. We've all got FOMO, fear of missing out, and we're not fear of missing out buying the stuff. You've already got it. Your fear of missing out is when to spend it, or even if to spend it. And I had a very good conversation with a fella earlier today who says he really doesn't care whether it goes to $5,000 an ounce. His goal is not to spend it because he wants generational wealth for his family, And right now, he has come from a family who struggled and battled through life. He has battled. He's been a good dad, made the best of what he can with what he's got. But he would be the first person to admit that he is a battler, or as we used to call him in the old days, a hard doer. And and he now sees a way forward where he can change his children's lives and his grandchildren's lives, which he doesn't have any yet, but that's the way he's viewing it. And that is a great way to view your investment in precious metals. Some of you will be viewing it with a view to retirement. There's nothing wrong with that. Um, God knows we could all use a bit more in retirement. What's another trip around the world between friends, if that's what you're up for doing? But you might find that you might get a bit more in your pocket than you thought, and maybe a little bit of philanthropy will help ease that burden a little for you. And I think we're going to find a lot of people will be helping others with their philanthropy going forward, because there has been some significant windfalls, some very significant windfalls. And I couldn't be happier for those of you who have been in that position, especially if it's because you heard it here first, so to speak. Go and get your gold and silver. Anyway, keep buying. That's my advice. And ainsleyBullion.com.au is a very easy place to go online and buy. There's a few red dots up at the moment for delivery notifications. However, they have no shortage of supply. At least that's the last message I received from Michael Engerman, the CEO of Ainslie Bullion. I did send him an email early this morning. I might get an email late tonight if I'm lucky. They are that busy. All right, let's move on. Remember last night we showed you some rather interesting beam type things that have been seen in the fires around Victoria recently. Well, I can tell you that there was something else that was thrown up today by way of well, it was a comment on something else. I've reached out to the people who made this comment to see whether or not there is any truth to it, and I've got no reason to doubt them. The group that I'm talking about is Higgins Storm Chasing. I was advised this morning that at some point in the last few days down in Victoria at an airfield near Geelong. Now, I'm gonna say Avalon, but there are other smaller airfields around Geelong. However, not many have maintenance facilities. So I'm going to say that the story comes out of Avalon near Geelong, where 3 Learjets were seen being fitted with some weird sort of equipment. And these aircraft were tracked once they departed whatever airfield they were at. And it was found that all 3 of them traveled a very similar route, some 600 kilometers long and 250 kilometers wide. And it just happened to fall right in line with the fires and associated other bits and pieces. Now, there was apparently a Higgins Storm Chasing Facebook post about this, but Facebook removed it. I've reached out to Higgins to see whether or not they can confirm or deny such a thing actually happened. To this moment, I haven't heard anything. So we'll have to wait and see. Maybe tomorrow, fingers crossed. But there's a lot of questions surrounding the Victorian bushfires, and I have seen a lot of drone vision today where people are suggesting, just like they saw in America, that houses have exploded into flames, but the trees around them, apart from just some low-level damage at ground level, really haven't been burnt much at all. I'm not sure that that is a completely fair analysis. A lot of the damage that I've seen does seem to be quite total. There is no ground cover left, for instance. However, the burning also does seem to have a kind of symmetry to it. And like all good conspiracy theorists, Once again, the smart meters have been raised as an area of concern amongst those of us who believe that they have the ability to change the power settings and the not alter so much power settings. Vince will tell you they have the ability to turn down the amount of power going into your devices. So if you've got your air conditioner set at 21 degrees and they decide that it's one of those days where they're not going to give you that sort of power, they'll back down the amount of power going to your house. Your machine will still say 21 degrees, but your machine will be blowing out 26 or 27 degree air. Uh, what's to say those things couldn't burst into flame or have every appliance in your house burst into flame, because they are essentially smart connected to all the latest devices. So that is an argument being made by a number of conspiracy analysts. I'm not going to say theories from Victoria about what else has been going on down there. We can also report that I wasn't too far wrong with 30-year-old fire trucks. That's one of them there. Now, I made it sound a little bit rude yesterday, I think, by saying, oh, there's no air conditioning. Air conditioning isn't a comfort thing. These people go out and stand under burning gum trees. Don't think a little bit of air conditioning is, the biggest thing on their minds. But it does become a bit of a necessity when you're in an area that might be being overrun with flame, and you can at least get some form of clear air into the cab. One of the other things that the 30-year-old plus trucks have is really shithouse suspension. So aside from vibrating a large amount of water out of the tanks going to and from the fireground, they are also pretty dangerous on the fireground for those people riding on the backs using the hoses and associate other things. I mean, they were, I guess, the pinnacle of technology at the time, but not good. These days, particularly at 30 years of age, I am told there are over 100 CFA units unavailable to fight the fires last weekend because the CFA do not have the funds to repair those vehicles, or they have been deemed too dangerous to take into a fireground for a variety of reasons. It would cost too much money of unallocated funds that the Victorian state government, while gaslighting the community, saying, oh, yes, we're giving them increased funding every year. The reality of it is that's bullshit. If they are increasing the funding, that funding is going into some shiny bum's pocket somewhere, and it is not getting to the people, the volunteers that risk their lives to save Victorian, South Australian, New South Wales, Queensland, Northern Territory, Western Australian and Tasmanian people's homes, their property, their belongings. Guess if we had a one world government, all that'd be sorted, wouldn't it? Would it be easier? There are certain things I think a one world government would make life very easy for. And I think that's the danger. There are certain things where you could make an argument it's not a bad idea. But for the most part, it's a shithouse idea. And Victoria leads them. As you can see here, do you remember those wonderful machete bins that proved to be so completely friggin' useless? Well, the average cost of those was, $375,000 each. Yeah. And now they've been turned into scrap. If you want a new fire truck built in Victoria, not in South Australian jails, but built in Wendouree in Ballarat, Victoria, if the manufacturing place is still there, you get one of those for $500,000. But instead, the cloth-eared bint that is Jacinda Allen went and put 40 of those things around various parts of Melbourne where they were roundly ignored for a month before being thrown in the scrap. I mean, they're almost as useful as these pricks. Now, I could be get right in the wrong place here, but that bloke, I think it's a bloke, standing there is wearing a Forest Fire Management Victoria set of overalls. His job is forest fire management. I don't know that Victoria could be classed as the worst state for forest management in Australia. There's a few contenders, New South Wales, Queensland. But Victoria do tend to lead by example, and they are out the front doing it. These Muppets, these forest fire management people, I'm gathering that this photo was probably taken a day or two into operations for these fires, because those overalls are looking a little bit dirty. But I wouldn't be at all surprised if they were brand new out of the plastic the day the fire started, because these Muppets don't get out into the Victorian forests and burn anything off. The burn-off targets in Victoria are so far behind, as it should be criminally liable. The state government should be criminally liable for the danger that they put the state in because of the Greens who live in inner city Melbourne and have seen trees. They wouldn't know what happened out in the bush. Those Greens in metropolitan areas, I urge you, please go out to the country, join the CFA, and go and fight one of these bushfires in the bush you so ravenously protect and very rarely visit. These people have to be made accountable. The decisions that these people make cost lives of other people, cost livelihoods, cost homes, cost marriages. I haven't even begun to touch on the cost of livestock and wildlife. I do know that there are 2 wildlife sanctuaries at least that have been decimated by these fires over the last weekend, and they are looking for all sorts of help. But you've sort of got to be in the area to help. They need help with fences in one case, food, obviously, and whatnot. And I think once Vince wakes up, we might see what we can put together along with my place, because I think they were doing something to try and arrange, if possible, some donations to the wildlife sanctuaries that need all the help they can get at the moment. There are many people who need help at the moment. There's one poor lady who actually runs one of those wildlife sanctuaries in Ruffy. I think she has lost her house, lost all the animals, bar a couple that were in care. Very sad. Very. And Jacinda Allen, you're to blame. Your incompetent government and the one before you are to blame. Your lies, your gaslighting to the Victorian community, I don't think is enough to save you, but maybe the rigged voting machines are. Because nobody surely could be foolish enough to vote a Labor Party in again in Victoria. Mind you, we said that last time, and look what happened. Unfreaking believable. Anyway, that's probably got enough for tonight. I hope you guys have been enjoying your week's holidays, if you are still on holidays. It is that kind of year. Let me have a bit of a look here and see what's going on in the chat. Yes, people who are still enjoying holidays, I really hope that you put in a good time for the next week or maybe 2 that you'll have off. I suppose everybody will be getting ready to get the kids back to school at some stage next week. Next week is going to be a very sad week for me. In fact, I really don't know. I'm finding it hard to even talk about it now. But Laura is heading back to Victoria. God help us. Next week. And I'm going to miss my little girl. So I'm going to spend a bit of time with her over the weekend. And yeah, I'm probably likely to be a bit miserable next week for a day or two, but we will kick myself in the appropriate place to put a bit of life into me, and we'll move on. Just having a squeeze at some of your comments. Billions going to the Ukraine, nothing for Oz fires. You couldn't be more correct, Gomez. Gomez, are you the Gomez that I know, Gomez? I used to work with a Gomez Adams. Marvellous bloke. Unbelievably talented. Is that you? Probably never heard me call you that, Gomez, if that's the case, but you are. Zelensky must be getting low on cocaine. Oh, well, there's a bit of sharing and that sort of shit going around. There has been a lot of conversations about Israel and Zionism lately, and there have been some people arrested for anti-Semitism. These people are only being arrested because it's a bit of a sham. It's a thank you. I just saw that pop up. I really appreciate that. Thank you. Yeah, I trust you, Jean. I'm going to be bloody miserable, but by Monday, hopefully, it will have worn off. She's leaving Monday morning, so we'll spend the weekend, have a bit of fun, I hope. What was I saying? I've forgotten what I was saying. Oh, yes, anti-skepticism. People, if we're going to be called anti-Semitist, then those calling us anti-Semitists must know the definition of the words. And I think the definition of the words are something they are missing completely. They are confusing Jews with Zionists. They are confusing Judaism with Zionism. And they are conflating anti-Zionism as anti-Semitic. Now, I think we've offered enough proof over the years that if you were ever in any doubt, we probably can do so again, that Zionists are not Jews. Yes, it appears like the Zionists run the country of Israel, and that's quite true. The Zionists do, because they are a political group. They are not based on the Jewish religion in any way, shape, or form. They use the Jewish religion without adhering to it. So at the moment, the anti-Semitism speech rhetoric that is going around needs to calm the farm a tad, in my opinion. Nobody is being anti-Jewish. There are a lot of people who are anti-Zionists, and the Zionists don't mind fighting back because they think it's okay. One day, maybe some of them would like to come and quote the Talmud with me. We'll see how well that goes on. At any rate, the world is changing rapidly, from parasites to devil worshippers, all. And there are a lot of very, very good people. Kevin Rudd isn't one of them. He's a dickhead, but it seems to have finally been identified that he is a dickhead, a very arrogant, smart ass. What is he, a doc? Anyway, he's off to some think tank that he probably helped set up and fund and is the main reason for his retirement. It's amazing he spends no time at all with his wife, who managed to clean out a huge amount, hundreds of millions of dollars out of the Australian people while married to Crud while he was Prime Minister, and she ran the immigration arm for the boat people coming in from Bali and Timor and those sorts of places during the Gillard Crud years. God, don't we remember them with such fun? And now, of course, they've got rid of him. He's getting out a year early, his tenure in America as our ambassador ends at the end of March. Couldn't happen to a nicer bloke. Is that because Trump refuses to deal with him? Is that because of the embarrassment? I don't think people like him suffer embarrassment. It's just a small blip on the radar. You move on. They have the hides of rhinoceros and the ability to lie like nothing else. So they can't afford to let that sort of thing slow them down. And while it may have put a bit of a dent in his armor, it hasn't knocked him off his feet, clearly, because he's going to a high six-figure paying job a year, paying job, I should say, in some sort of think tank that he thinks he's going to make a difference to the world with. It's a Chinese think tank. Somebody tried to tell us that he's the world's foremost academic expert on China. God help us if that's the case. God help the whole friggin' world if that's the case. But who are they going to get to replace him? Well, there have been a couple of names thrown up. Brendan Nelson, another doctor. Now, Nelson was in charge of the Australian War Memorial for many years after he was at one stage the Liberal Party opposition leader. I think he was also the health minister under one of the other Liberal governments. At any rate, got out of politics, wound up in politics at the Australian War Memorial, but was responsible for some marvellous stuff to be built there. Now he's the president of Boeing. But there's calls for him to be sent over as the new Australian ambassador. And I guess when you put him up against the person that it looks like Labor are going to give it to, who is a former crud minister and union sycophant whose name escapes me at the moment because, well, let's face it, ex-Labor politicians aren't worth remembering unless it's only to call out their name in a court and watch them sentenced. But this bloke has been known to call Donald Trump all sorts of expletives. So I don't know how we're upgrading from one moron to another, but trust the Australian Labor Party to make sure they're consistent. Oh, and of course, there is always the chance that they could send Penny Wong. I believe she's preparing for the job. Should go off quite swimmingly. Have yourself a lovely night, folks. If you're going out on the roads, the dickheads are out there. I saw 2 of them today and dodged them both. Hoping you do the same. See you
let one ant stand up to us, then they all might stand up.
Those puny little ants outnumber us 100 to 1. And if they ever figure that out, there goes our way of life.
It's not about food. It's about keeping those ants in line. That's why we're going back.
Does anybody else want to stay?
Let's rock!